Hello, Lara. What is it you want to talk about today?
Well, I've I've recently been aware of this sort of like deep feeling of sadness and like deep aloneness, and it was brought on by I became aware of it buying my first house, and uh, the there was a lot of renovations that were needed, and part of that was that. Um, we had to paint all this old oil paint, and there was something that went wrong with the paint, so we're still not able to live there. Uh, and while it's off gassing, and it's kind of a mystery problem.
Uh-huh.
So, the solution's not clear, so the move-in date's not clear. But when I think about uh, moving into the house with my husband, it's my first house uh, purchase, and I just feel this like deep sense of like something being wrong, basically, and uh, just this like sort of deep sense of like isolation. And I thought it was attributed to the house, but now I'm not sure. Because it's also the first time in my life that I've done something like out of my comforts zone. Is kind of the largest like undertaking I'd say that I've done myself.
So you're leaving your comfort zone
Hmm.
and you feel sad.
And I feel like this deep sadness and aloneness.
And it doesn't sound as if this is an adult sadness or an adult aloneness.
No, it doesn't. And it's quite it's a lot more profound, and it's a lot more intense than anything I've experienced. And it's kind of like the paint smell. It's hard to localize it. It's hard to see what's causing it. Um, I thought that it had to do with my relationship with my husband, but now I feel like it's even sort of below that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a number of flash questions and you answer the first thing that comes up. So is this sadness from the beginning of your adult life or earlier?
I feel like it's earlier.
Is it earlier than 12 years?
I think so.
Earlier than 6?
Uh, yeah, I believe so.
Okay, we go on. Earlier than 4.
It might be 4. It also feels a little bit like if it's not my dad's sadness, then it's something to do with like aloneness is a theme with him as well.
Aloneness in the theme with him.
Yeah. Like I feel like at some point I'm going to have to take care of him because he's going to be alone.
Why do you mention your dad?
Just because it feels like this like really deep isolation from like all other people, and I feel like he has that as well.
Okay, so this you have the sadness and your dad has the sadness.
Hmm.
So if you imagine a situation that comes up, uh, let's so first, is that sadness already there at 3?
4 sounds right.
4 sounds right. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's look at 4. This seems to be significant. So if you think at 4, what shows up? Images, sounds, feelings.
I remember the basement in the house that I grew up in, that we bought when we moved to Canada, and I remember my brother walking, like for steps, and I remember the smell of the house.
You remember the
Um,
smell of the house.
Yeah, it was like a damp, like moldy kind of smell, like a damp smell.
Is there anything that's specific that happened in the basement? Your brother walking
No,
his first steps?
brother walking was in the kitchen. I spent a lot of time in the basement. Like I spent a lot of time alone in the basement. So there was like that sense of loneliness being in that basement.
Okay, so you're in the basement and you're
And it,
alone.
yeah, and it's that same feeling of like, yeah, just being really alone.
If you're in the basement alone, there might be a wish that someone is there.
There's more of a wish that I'm out in the world
Uh-huh.
than I wish someone was there.
Okay, and what does that mean? That wish being out in the world. Where are you when you're out in the world?
I think I'm just with people.
With
It's not
people.
it's not like a clear where I want to be. I just don't want to be in the basement. I want to be outside.
So outside with people. So
But yeah, not my family, just people.
so what's so disappointing about your family?
Just this lack of like just a lack of connection. Like the my parents aren't really able to like connect with other people.
What is it when you say my parents weren't don't connect, are not able to connect? If you
Uh,
perceive that, what happens?
I feel I feel like physically alone as well as emotionally alone. Like I feel like no one is around. Like I can't perceive them even physically in the space or in the house. Like the house is empty.
What's different?
It doesn't feel empty anymore.
Uh-huh.
I can't really feel any people, but it just the house itself feels warmer.
And what about the sadness and the aloneness?
I still feel that if I think about like being in the basement and like looking out the window.
Uh-huh. So the house doesn't feel empty anymore, but the basement looking out of the window, that's still there.
Yeah, it's lesser. It's definitely lessened.
Okay. Do you see yourself when you look out of the window?
I'm in myself.
You're in yourself. So what you see is an image outside through the glass.
Yes. Yeah, like I'm just looking at the sky outside.
What happens if you look at the sky from the basement? What's different?
I'm like at the level of the window now, and it just kind of dissolves actually. I don't feel like and I feel like I feel I'm no longer in the basement.
Uh-huh. So you left the basement.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
And I feel like I'm floating out of that house entirely.
Floating out of that house. That's interesting. You're an adult now, so you don't need to be in that, stay in that house. Okay. What about the sadness?
The sadness about the I don't feel the sadness about the house because I'm no longer there.
Uh-huh.
I still feel the sadness around like the current house but it's more that I don't know how to fix it. Whereas before it was sadness around actually moving into the house.
There is a problem, you don't know how to fix it, and that's different from this old sadness, aloneness.
Yeah. Yeah, before the sadness was about, I felt that sadness if I imagined like moving into that house.
Uh-huh. So there's a shift in the perception from a kind of archaic sadness and aloneness to a practical issue.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know how to fix it. How to fix what?
This smell in the house
Of the paint.
of the paint. Yeah.
What are the practical options?
Uh, I have a bunch of practical options actually. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I guess I just keep trying those until one of them.
So if you go back to the issue you started with, you don't want to move into the house. There's a sadness, there's a aloneness. How's that now?
It's not totally gone, but it's a lot less.